All right, peace and blessings, peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum, shalom. Welcome everyone. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Peace and blessings, Doc. How you feeling?
I'm good, my brother. I'm good. How you?
I'm doing good as well. We got Deacons of Reality in the house already. Peace and blessings, Deek. Good to have you here with us. Today, Doc, since looks like the world is heading towards World War III. We got America with their ships down in the desert. We got China sending her ships down there in the desert. We got the Hamas waiting on the fake Jew to come and bring their ass into Palestine. We got Hezbollah waiting for them to bring their ass in, and so that they can really get it on. So we're going to talk about this.
And we got American women scared as hell. They talked all of that equality. Now they talk about instituting the draft and pulling them on up into the military too. So yeah, there go your equality. Sign up. Go on over there.
Definitely. We got some videos from some Gen Zers, as they're called. And they answer the question about, whether they're going to go to the draft and would they answer the call of the draft. And it's very funny looking at their reactions to, that this real opportunity where you get to go and serve your great country. But we'll deal with that.
Yeah.
And we want to welcome Mayat to the program. Peace and blessings. And Twin Pyramid, peace and blessings. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We're glad y'all with us. So
welcome all.
This now in my estimation, and I ain't gonna lie, I'm hard on Israel because I don't like the bastards. I think
that comes across, bro. That comes across.
I don't think that they are the children of God. I think they are the children of Satan. I think, as the Bible calls them, the Synagogue of Satan. I believe it 1,000%. And I'm not as studied as you are, but and I'm still very interested in your thing that you did with them as the fellow. And I don't know, were you allowed to ask them, real deal questions about, their behavior and all that good stuff?
Well, really what it was it was a part of it it's called the Jack and Anita Hess Fellowship. They funded a part of my stay there, but they principally what they wanted, and this is going to set you back a little bit. They brought in all of us were HBCU professors that they brought in, and they wanted to teach us their historiography, their timeline, their version of history of what happened. Basically, it's you go there and for a couple of weeks, the first couple of weeks, they kind of steeped us in creating a foundation for the generation of Israel, what their claim was, and a part of the funding was that we were supposed to all go back to our home campuses after we were done and create courses on either, as they refer to it, the Holocaust, but of course I refer to it as the Jewish Holocaust. Courses dealing with the creation of Israel, the history of Jews, all these different facets. That's why they brought us in. That's what our charge was. And so after that initial moment, we were, and they sent us, man, and like I said, when they do it well. They sent us 30, 40 books months before we went. So we were to have this reading material done by the time that we got there. And so it was a controlled environment. Just think about being in a seminar for 3-4 weeks straight. And then after that, we were allowed to go through their archives and things like that. And of course, we went through the Holocaust Museum part where they tell their story. And like I said, man, look here, when it comes to telling a story, they second to none. That you leave up out there wanting a yarmulke on top of your head if you ain't careful. Um, so did we get to ask them questions in the seminar class thing? You could ask questions, but it was dealing with the reading materials that we had to engage. So, and we weren't, and once again, we were HBCU faculty, but out of that cohort of HBCU faculty, I want to say there may have been 5 or 6 of us who were Black. All the
Mm.
rest were either Jewish or white. So in many ways, it was a way for them to encourage us to bring Jewish history into the HBCU and to teach that to African American students. And the irony that always sat with me and still kind of sits with me to this day is that they don't need a Jewish studies department on your campus. They simply do it the way that they did it with us: bring us on, teach us what they want us to teach, and then when you go back to your campus, you create these classes that are going to be listed under history, political science, or whatever other departmental area that you were affiliated with. And you want to talk about something that will blow your mind. We were given the opportunity for for forever, to bring in Holocaust survivors, concentration camp survivors. And so they footed the bill for that. The only thing they asked you to do with them was to serve them lunch. So
Mm.
however much lunch cost or what have you, you would do that. But yeah, and I actually brought in 2 of the concentration camp survivors. And and it's history, and the story is the story. Um, but that's what they were doing. And so here we were expected to teach Jewish studies on HBCU campuses, yet we didn't even have a FM studies program there. We had nothing. We had classes in history, dealing with FM studies, but that's what it was really aimed at. It wasn't just aimed at, we got a whole bunch of money and out of the goodness of our hearts we're gonna bring Jones up here. No, it was we're gonna bring Jones up in here. We're gonna give him all these materials and these books. We're gonna teach him over a 3-week period about Jewish history and about Jewish studies, and give him the charge that when he goes back to his home campus, he creates classes so Jewish history and studies could be taught.
And so did you create any classes?
I hope they ain't watching now. Ain't create no classes. I mean, it's one of those where I get involved with a whole lot of things where people had these demands on me about, yeah, well, when you go back, and it's not that I'm just taking their money, but at the same time, I'm going there for my own studies.
Mhm.
And the reason that I went was I wanted to. I was less interested and enthused by the literature and the timelines and the historiography and the history surrounding what they went through. I went there with the express purpose of trying to decipher this question, and it is, how could a people who suffered extermination, as they refer to it, their Holocaust being, give or take a year, being a decade, versus and how it's viewed in the public, versus how the African Holocaust has been in many ways discarded. That's what I went for. I wanted to understand the storytelling part of it because they're doing something with their story that we're not doing. They utilize their story as a wedge, a bully pulpit, so to speak, to get the world to not only sympathize with them, but to aid them in advancing their agenda. It's you know there has to be, Malcolm said it this way. He said, if you see somebody that's doing exactly what you're doing, but they're getting different results from you than you are, they're doing something different. And so that was my goal. I wanted to know what was it that they were doing different. And the truth of the matter is that it's not that they're all solidified, because they're not. But their story is a story that I don't know what kind of heart you got to have if you can engage that story as they tell it, devoid of knowing anything before, and not be moved. It's that good.
So, Doc, their big thing, their big thing
Mhm.
is what Hitler and them did to them, right? That's their cake and ice cream right there,
Well,
correct?
I mean, the no, no, it's more so the entire system of what happened, and they're able to tell the story in a way that it implicates people who really had not much to do with it. Like the U.S. One of the reasons why the U.S. has been so welcoming to aid them in something that happened a world away hinges upon a couple things. One of them is quite simply, you came too late. You should have known what we were going through. Okay. And then the fact is that you got to remember that World War II, when it breaks out, we're dealing with, and I mean humanity is dealing with a global depression. Okay. So when you talk about a global depression, Americans were saying then what they're saying now, just aimed at brown people. And it was because you're not allowed to you're not allowed to enter this nation without a job. Okay. If you somebody here can sponsor you and give you a job, you would be able to come. But being a global depression, there were no jobs. And Americans were basically saying, if there are jobs to be given, give them to us. The the most notable individual who was able to sort of jump over that hurdle, and it'll be obvious why he was able to jump over that hurdle when you hear his name, is Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein was inside of Germany when the National Socialist Party, the Nazis, took over, but he was able to get out because American universities wanted to hire him. Okay, there's culpability there in the way they tell that story upon America. Now, you or I would look at that and say, "Nah, that's that's a stretch because we didn't have anything to do with that." The way the story is told, well, you didn't come aid us soon enough. Okay, you didn't allow us to leave when we could have left, because before they get to the final solution, there's years where the National Socialist Party is telling them before they go to the final solution, which was mass extermination. There were years where they were telling them to leave. This wasn't an overnight thing. And so the way the narrative and the story is wrapped up, they say, well, if the U.S. and the world had allowed us, our people, to leave, we would have never experienced what we experienced.
So, Doc, um, so in our story,
Huh?
we know that these
Wait, whoa,
crackers.
whoa, 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 whoa. And when you say our story,
Mhm.
and this is why it's so troubling and convoluted. I have to ask you, who is R? Are you talking about black folk, American descendants of slavery? Are you talking
Exactly.
about all of those who were transported between the Caribbean, Brazil, and the U.S.? Who do you mean by our story? And I ask that to kind of drive home the point of you don't have to ask that of their story, because the way they tell their story, they're solidified. There's only one Jewish experience according to their story.
Yeah, definitely. Before I go in, let me welcome Brother Willie Rivers to the program. We want to welcome also Earth Angel Remix 1105. And tell your daughter happy birthday. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday. If I had known in advance, I got a real soulful, jazzy birthday song that I learned off of the internet. I would sing it, but you know, that give me some advance warning for me to be able to do that. Happy birthday.
And so I'm speaking about us, who our ancestors were brought here to America as slaves.
Okay, so
There,
you're talking about the British colonies, North American slavery. Okay, I'm with you.
right. So there's culpability for everybody. There's nobody that oh, I didn't know what was going on. No. Our story
Mhm.
is the legit story that everybody had their hand in. Our story is the legit story that if any genocide need to be told and built off of, it's ours. It's ours. We lost more people. We've suffered longer.
Mhm.
And these fakers is riding a horse that they fucking stole.
You know, it
So
works.
so
See,
what what
that's kind of the thing. It works though.
but what needs to change in our storytelling to get that same effect?
You need to have your scholars craft that story and tell that story. And they need to tell it repeatedly. They need to tell it, they need to tell it in their own institutions. They need to tell it on news channels. They need to tell that everywhere. The truth of the matter is that no one, even Africans, have any sympathy in their heart for black people. And that is because the racial image, the racial brand has been so damaged. Hell, black women don't have any sympathy for black men. When your own can't find sympathy for a plight that they're dealing with, oh yeah, your story has been hijacked. You haven't told the story. And it's the reason why that that repeated image that you have coming out of Alex Haley's Roots, where they hold the child up and they talk to God, say the only thing greater than you. That's why that's important. Black folk lost that a long time ago. We don't think like that. We look at the arrival of a child far too often as being what? Burdensome. We don't see that child as any other race sees their children when they arrive, by and large. Okay. Winston Churchill said that the greatest investment that any people can make is in books and bottles, education and children. Now that when you really think about that, and so here you have a system that we've allowed, because black folk have agency, but we've allowed this through scatterbrainness and a host of other things that we could argue about. We've allowed those who hate us to have access to the most important resource that we have, the minds of our children. Whereas other folk, like just my experience with the Jack and Anita Hess thing, other people are coming and getting even our adults, setting them in a room, giving them literature to read and telling them this is the story. Now go and tell it. Our kids don't even hear that from us. So how do you do it? You got to craft the story. You know, everyone should have read by now Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart. Every black child should read that. Okay. But when you talk to our children, they ain't read that, but they damn sure have read the Diary of Anne Frank. Now you think about which one has more applicability to the black mind.
For those who don't know nothing about that book, what is the book again?
Things Fall Apart. I don't know. You where you at? The Roots, the rap group, the Roots, Black Thought, all of those cats. They titled one of their albums "Things Fall Apart." Okay, kind of trying to point you towards, but Things Fall Apart is a story of a group of Africans in a place called Umofia. It is close to Nigeria, and it surrounds a gentleman by the name of Okonkwo, who is the protagonist. If you read it, you'll see yourself in Okonkwo. Okonkwo ain't taking no shit. Okay, there's going to be structure in society. Their society, you work your way up. Okay, you earn your titles. Okay, Okonkwo is going to be at a celebration, and this is a man who is born to a father who is just a derelict. His father left nothing for his son to build upon. Okay, and there's a humorous moment in there where one of the guys that Okonkwo's father owes money to, he comes to see him to see about, because his daughter's getting married and he needs that money to put on a big shindig. And Okonkwo's father he said, look at my wall. He said, that's all the debts I got. Don't you think it would be irresponsible for me to pay you when I owe so many others so much more? No, I'm going to pay my big ones first. That's the stock that he comes from. But Okonkwo is going to work his way up. And he's at a celebration, and his gun goes off and kills a fellow tribesman. He's going to be tried and banished to his mother's homeland. In that time where he's in his mother's homeland, things fall apart. Europeans come, and they have this idea. They have this place called the Evil Forest. And if you go in the Evil Forest, you're going to die within like 3 days. Well, these Europeans come in, these evangelists, the men of God, and they asked to build a church. The Africans thought it would be funny to have them build a church in the Evil Forest. They do it, and they don't die. Causing the Africans to kind of say, oh, wait a minute, hold on. And they start preaching this gospel of a heavenly Father who accepts you as you are. Now, the people of Umofia have some individuals who, for whatever reason, are outcast. They can't get haircuts. They can't function well. The Christians will accept them. And slowly they build a prison. They build stores. They build a school. And before it's all over, before Okonkwo can come back, because he's been banished for, I believe it was 7 years. By the time they've been captured completely, so things fall apart. And before long, they're a part of the slave trade, this and that. It's a classic story where my man Okonkwo, he's a hero. He is what you could consider tradition. He's the mode of tradition. And when his people go against all the tradition and he comes back, he asks this overarching question. And it's a question that I ask about my people. Where are the men? And what he's asking is, how did y'all let this happen? How did y'all let these people come here, build a fucking jail that they put us in when they want to? If you want to go buy something from their store, you got to go work for them because you need money. They got you. And it's a society Okonkwo refuses to live in. And even Okonkwo's son joined with the Europeans and becomes a Christian, changes his name to Isaac. Okay. Which, just sort of a side story, that some of the Mormons came to my door once. They were Nigerians, spreading the Church of Latter-day Saints. And I asked them, I said, you ever read things fall apart. And they were like offended. Yes, we read that. We read that in school. Well, you know that story better than you. I said, well, you Isaac. That's who you are. You're Isaac. And we got a whole bunch of other Isaacs who have basically turned their back on their people to propagate for another people's perspective of the world solely so that they can get a couple trinkets from them.
How do you think that with Okonkwo, in the way he went out by hanging himself?
I was trying to not say that part, bro, but go ahead. I was trying not to spoil it for people who might want to go read it. But the brother, you must be hell at the movie theater, ain't you? Oh yeah, this is what's gonna happen right here. Watch this part. Watch this part. Watch this part. No, but I mean the fact that he kills himself, that he hangs himself, he's preaching to his people. Okay. Because with their people, it's a sin to cut down a person who has killed himself. So Okonkwo killing himself is very representative and symbolic because he's saying, yo, y'all don't believe anyway, so cut me the fuck down. And they're gonna go, they're lukewarm. They go and get the white folk to cut him down. But he's preaching to him, why not cut me down? Because this society and culture is not like a buffet. You don't come down and say, well, I want some fried chicken today. I don't want this today, but I do want some of this mac and cheese. That ain't what our society should be like. There are going to be some things within your society, within your culture that you disagree with. But you toe the line. You toe the line because if you don't toe the line, the past will be whittled away. Okay? And that's one of the problems that we've seen within Black America. We've seen an abandonment of decency. Because being decent ain't exciting. It ain't fun. It ain't dramatic enough. So unless you have, to take us back to what we were talking about earlier, unless you have things fall apart being taught to Black elementary school children, unless you have Black children understanding what the transatlantic slave trade was, and it's not our shame, you'll never be able to reverse what has happened to our people. And that's where a part of their power is, because your Black self, you never get access to their children's minds. Never. You'll never get it. And they're serious about that. And that's why, regardless, and once again, we talked about this idea of manufacturing consent. That's why when you go to a place like Notre Dame, 99% of those that come out of there, because it's a Catholic institution, they are pro-life. That ain't accidental. They all on certain major things, they all think the same. Jews who have never been to Israel still support it. Whereas Black folk who ain't never been to Africa, I ain't leaving nothing in Africa. They don't even like us over there. Brother Robert, you in a Frantz Fanon, black skin, white mask. You really have to think about how white-minded our community has become. We have become, in many ways, for many of us, a replication of the monsters that created, as James Baldwin would say, niggas. You think like them. You have the same values that they have. Hell, what's the difference between y'all? And that's it. And when they come across somebody who's got a little fire in them, you're radical now. You're radical because he told you to take your chains off. Plato's allegory of the cave. It represents who Black folk actually are perfectly.
Well, I hope that they, and I probably need to look it up and see, but I hope they listen to rap music. I
Who?
hope these Zionist children listen to rap music and let it destroy their goddamn minds. I really hope so.
You would. I'm telling you, man. And hey, you don't get access to their minds now. You go over there and you hear some chanting going on. You
Mm.
know, I don't.
There,
They.
there,
I tell you what. They may actually listen to Jay because the Marcy projects sit right around the corner from a Jewish community. So they might have heard some of that as they was walking by to collect the rents this month.
mm, mm, mm. I really hope. Well, I'm gonna go ahead and jump into this first video
Let's go.
where we're gonna look at Netanyahu, this fucking liar. Yeah, I swear to God, I hope this cracker fall dead right now. That's why I just hate everything come out of his mouth is a goddamn lie. But we're gonna look at this video and come back and discuss it because, as you said, they tell a story, and this nigga is a chief liar. So let's check this out and see.
Let's go.
Can live here, we can live here, but it's our land. We say to them, you can live here, we can live here, but it's our land, it's our state. The reason this conflict continues is because the Palestinians, who represent the colonial powers, the Arab conquest of the Middle East and beyond, they are saying, you have no right for a Jewish state. Well, we do. If any people has any right to a state, if any people never gave up their dreams of returning to their ancestral home, if any people rebuilt their home from nothing, from barren, wasted land, it's the Jewish people. To tell them, you have suffered more than anyone else. You have no right to be there. But the Arabs who are trying to destroy you, they have that right. That is a complete perversion of history and also a complete perversion of justice. The Jews belong to this land belongs to the Jews. The Palestinians are free to live here next to us, among us, but they're not free to demand the dissolution of the Jewish state.
Okay, so there we have chief liar number one. That land is their land. The Jews the Palestinians don't have no right to say that is not their land. That the Palestinians represents the colonizers. So he's telling his lies straight. And it's like people that listen don't have enough balls to say you're lying. That's just not true. Now, Doc, what's your thoughts on what Netanyahu's saying?
I understand his perspective, wholeheartedly, and I I'm not gonna say I don't find anything wrong with what he said, but in having been around them and around their thinkers, I get why he's saying what he's saying. I haven't read their literature. I get why, because they've convinced themselves that they're not in the wrong. And as brother Epps put up here, that whoever feeds herself both physically and mentally, they're going to control you. They fed their people physically and mentally. This idea, they've grown up in a world where that is their reality, and you don't read any other outside literature beyond that. So you're convinced of that, and you've lost the ability to even consider an opposing perspective. And that opposing perspective is quite simply, look, no, what the way y'all talking about this, no, that's not the way it went. But your protestation of that, protestation of that right here is going to not necessarily fall on deaf ears, but it's not going to reach the audience that his statement reaches. So that's an issue. Now, when you have a position that you've written about, you thought about, you bounced it around in your head so often, you're always going. Many people who are unscrupulous are going to always end up at a position that is self-advantageous for them and their people, and that's what you're seeing done. They're convinced of what he just said. Now, the converse is also true. And I liken it to I saw a sister on I don't know what, Instagram or TikTok or something, and she tried to rent her place out as an Airbnb. She does. She goes, and the housekeeper was contacted her about a couple of days before she came back. She said, "Listen, the person that you rented the house to, she ain't left yet." She's like, "What do you mean she ain't left yet? Her time is up." That woman she rented that house to is still living with her. She refused to leave. And she's adamant about that. No. And the police are like, "Well, this is a civil matter that y'all have to work." That's kind of what you're saying. So this sister is living in hell. How do you think she's going to feel when she walks in her house and see this other chick with her feet kicked up on the furniture? So you have two groups who are claiming the same land, and it's never going to end until one of them is wiped off of the face of the earth, and that looks like where we're headed to right now. So what he said, I've heard it all before, and I would expect it. I would kind of be disappointed if he said something other than what he said. Now, as to if he has a moral position for it, nope. But if you say it often enough and you're the lead story often enough, you're going to convince an entire world that you're in the right and that you can't be in the wrong. And I yield, brother.
So are you saying this cracker don't know he lying?
Yep.
One thing that I see.
I mean, do you think, okay, let's use this as an example. Okay. Do you think that Benjamin Netanyahu has ever read How to Eat to Live?
Of course not.
Okay. Why not?
Because it doesn't interest him. He doesn't look at the Honorable Elijah Muhammad as he's a man worthy of learning from. So no, he ain't gonna listen. That's not nowhere in his thinking.
So just consider that in regards to the things that he believes that are worth learning, and that entire populace, the things they believe that is worth studying and learning, are only produced by their people, and only advance the position that they have.
But see, this is my thing, because he's educated. He got his degree, so he knows the truth.
No.
He knows the truth.
No, he's trained.
No,
he's trained. There's a difference between education and training. And when you look at a conflict between two people, okay, they have written about that, and they come up with a moral argument as to why that is their land, and they also buttress that with a biblical argument as to why that is their land, even though they're the people who say that they don't believe that the Messiah, the Christ figure, ever came back. And even that, when you think about their view of the Jews who don't believe that Yeshua ever came back, those individuals, they have a perspective and a belief that when he comes back, he will come back as a warrior to kill all of the enemies of Israel. Even their mythology and folklore is aimed and grounded upon them winning. They ain't reading nothing about no Egyptian gods. They don't know nothing about Ma'at. They're solely concerned with advancing what it is that they believe, and they're trying to make that the reality for the entire globe. That's who they are.
That nigga went to school in America and over there and over there in England. So the nigga know. He know. He that argument that he don't know nothing. No. That nigga
No.
know
I'm not saying he doesn't know nothing. What I am saying is that he's been convinced. Like I'll give you the perfect example of being in graduate school. We would study different versions of different things, but you go with the preponderance of the evidence, and you learn to go ahead and defeat other people's arguments by this sort of cascade of evidence. Things that are contrary to your position and your cascade of evidence to your position, you ignore them eventually. That's what they're doing. It's not that they haven't been exposed. They have convinced themselves that those things are slanted, that those things are lies. And even if they do know, who gives a fuck, because this is our land.
See, and this is the thing for me, because he know he lying. He know that shit ain't their land. He know the Palestinians wasn't no goddamn colonists. Yeah, it's coming to ride and take over and all that shit. He know all that, but he's lying. And to me is like, you know, the cover is too fucking short. Ain't nobody stupid that's just gonna go along and hear you da 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 and be like, yeah, that nigga telling the truth. No, that cracker is lying. Lying. I mean, even the thought that, you know, he says, you know, well, we're gonna cut off their water, we're gonna cut off their food, we're gonna cut off their heat, their electricity, we're gonna do this. Motherfucker, these are war crimes that you're doing, and the whole fucking white world, damn, they're going right along with you, saying, yep, and old fuckhead Joe Biden, dumb cracker ass, yep, and we're gonna send warships and we're gonna do this. There's no truth ever in these motherfuckers.
Did you not see the horrific attack of Hamas upon Israel?
What? First of all, that's bullshit.
That's their, but that's part of their propaganda. Once again, like we started off, I told you, it's how they tell the story. They control the narrative. It's how they tell that story. And so when you put that out there as the lead story, well, we unprovoked and this and that and blah 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 blah. People believe that shit, especially when you're talking about a world of dim-witted motherfuckers, and that's really what you're talking about. And so when you're talking about just deal with Americans, the American electorate, they don't care nothing about no war crimes. They care about what you told me and how is it going. It's almost like they're watching a reality TV show. The majority of Americans cannot point to Palestine on a map. Hell, they can't even point to Liberia, and that's directly connected to them. So you're not dealing with a enlightened populace, but you're dealing with individuals who have a propaganda machine that, you know, hey, like Bad Boy said, can't stop, won't stop. It's just what it is. That's who they are.
Well, we would need to make sure that we're educating our people right, that they understand that Benjamin Netanyahu's fucking, that goddamn cracker, that damn Satan devil is lying his fucking ass off. He ain't a word come out of this motherfucker's mouth that he just said was truthful. Not nary one word was truthful. And it's not like he don't know no better. He know better, but he do it anyway. He don't give a damn about what the real truth is. And see, for me, it's when I see what they do to the Palestinians over there, and fuckhead Joe Biden okays it, and yep, and we're gonna do this, because that's what they plan for us right here in America. That's what they plan for Black us right here in America. That's why they can't say to them over there, oh, don't do that, don't do this, don't do that, oh, you're wrong, da, 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 da. Like Joe Biden said when he was younger. I don't give a damn about what the cause is, but we just got to stop them from knocking my sons in the head and robbing them. I don't care what was done to get them that way, but we just got to stop. See, and this is the shit. Because it's them, you know what? Let's deal with the quote unquote motherfucking. They didn't know that the shit was going to happen. They didn't know that Hamas was going to hit the gates and fly in with this bullshit. Them motherfuckers knew about it, but that some bitch sat back and said,
let it out.
I got my country turning against me. They want to oust my ass. I got Hamas planning to try to come in over here. Let's let them come. Let's let that shit happen, just like they did in America on 9/11. Let's let that shit happen, and then we can take it and we can run with it, and I can stay in power a little bit longer. See, it's this hidden shit, and our people, especially black people, we gotta be so on it that we can see when the motherfuckers start moving their lips. That's automatically to know that they fucking lying. Automatically to know that they motherfucking lying. When they start using the goddamn this our 9/11. This is our this is our motherfucker. Well, 9/11 was a fucking joke. Was an inside job. So this your 9/11? This is an inside motherfucking job. Is an inside joke.
Yeah, but you're dealing with, once again, and I'm principally only concerned with black folk, by and large, but you're dealing with a group of individuals, meaning our folk, who have been, in the words of Lupe Fiasco, dumbed down, to the point where it's in many ways astonishing. I had a exchange with my students yesterday, and somehow they got to talking about some of my colleagues and how, I was looking to take you for History 1. Are you teaching History 1? Because I don't want to take nobody other than you. I like your history class. I don't like it. And I'm like, somewhere along the lines, we've forgotten how to, meaning educators, how to even teach and reach our people. And so you have a lot of silliness that has come up that doesn't have to be, but I would question, and I would really like to know this. How many of our people actually know who Benjamin Netanyahu is? Know anything about him? How many of our people would be able to name, the nations that are threatening to be? How many of them are aware that we're on the precipice of World War III? Or are they just solely dumbed down to the point where none of that really matter? Chris Rock had that great joke where he says, nothing makes a nigga happier than not to know. And they'll tell you, nigga, I don't know that shit. Well, I think that that's a lot more common amongst our people, unfortunately, than we would be comfortable with acknowledging. And once again, it comes down to, explaining to them why what's going over in North Africa is important to them and important to their future. But you can, so many of our people, they don't know, and they don't know enough to care. And that's an issue.
Well, we definitely have to get it right and wake them up. And that's why I hope that when we finish with this program today, people will watch it and understand and come into the light of knowledge, so that they won't be making stupid mistakes. Because if this thing go the way it's going to go, the draft will come into effect, and we're going to get into that as well, because the American military is not at the size that it really should be to be going on fighting a war, and then they look in the draft, and they don't need to be looking to draft no black people. None of us should be jumping in there. You know, you don't like you. Shit, you better stay out of drafts before you catch a cold. And this goddamn kind of cold will kill you. You better stay out of it. But let's look at this guy, Norm Finkelstein. He compares October 7th to the Nat Turner slave rebellion. And, you know, let's see what he talks about.
Can't hear it.
Okay.
In the American context, we had slave revolts. And the slave revolts were quite bloody. So, for example, the best known slave revolt in the US, or the largest, was Nat Turner in 1831, the Nat Turner Rebellion. Now, Nat Turner was black, obviously. He was a religious fanatic. He was a zealot. He was convinced that this rebellion was inspired by God, and all of his actions were sanctioned, approved by God. He gave the order to his Confederates to kill all white people. Kill all white people in your path. And a lot of white people were killed. Scores of white people were killed. By current terminology, we call them innocents, were killed. I wanted to know, how did the abolitionists, those who opposed slavery, what kind of moral judgment did they render on Nat Turner? And so I went back. One of the greatest of the abolitionists, white, was a fellow named Garrison, William Lloyd Garrison. He was the editor of a newspaper called The Liberator. And I went to see, what did he write? And I have to say to you, it was very consoling to me, because he did what I did after Gaza. Number one, he said, I told you so. We warned you and warned you and warned you and warned you, we meaning the abolitionists. This was going to happen. Number two, he denounced all the hypocrites, the pious, self-righteous hypocrites who were denouncing what happened in Nat Turner's rebellion. And number three, and I hope your listeners will pay close attention, number three, even though he said what happened during the Nat Turner revolt was horrible, it was very clear he never once condemned the slave revolt. He did not. He did not. I posted on my Substack, I posted on my Twitter account, the full statement by William Lloyd Garrison. He did not. And the Nat Turner Rebellion, and I described it to you just a moment ago quite accurately, it now occupies an honored place in American history. It does. And William Lloyd Garrison is a revered figure. There were basically William Lloyd Garrison, Charles Sumner, Thaddeus Stevens, and Garrett Smith. There are a few. But he's one of the revered figures of the abolitionist movement to end slavery. So I felt assured, even in the absence of my mentor, Professor Chomsky, I felt confident that I had applied, even though my moral faculty is not finely honed, I applied the right judgment in this situation.
Okay, Doc. So he says that what Hamas has done on October 7th was equal or like the Nat Turner slave revolt. What's your thoughts on that? Is that would you agree with that or disagree?
I would agree. I would agree wholeheartedly that that's exactly what you saw. You know, it's not about the race. It's about the idea of a oppressed people lashing out against whom they deem as their oppressor. So, yeah, I mean, I would be hard pressed to not see and to not support what it is that he actually said. You know, and it is quite simply that there are so many parallels when you begin to look at the idea of oppression. And, you know, I've heard the treatment of the Palestinians in the following way, that really what it is that They're living in the world's largest open air
Prison.
prison.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm very, I actually applaud what it is that he said, because as the child of formerly enslaved individuals, and having studied their history, I understand that. I understand why he did what he did. I understand Gabriel. I understand Denmark. I understand Stono. These are people who are searching for a way out of no way, especially when you're dealing with a position where the oppressor has no empathy and no real reason to take their boot off of your neck. So you're going to have to make a move, and they certainly made a move. So I understand that, and it's not talking about, history wise. It's not unprecedented what happened. The problem that the Palestinians have is that Israel has a big bad brother that is willing to come to her defense. The same thing that Britain had with World War One and World War Two. They got a tough brother called the United States of America, and there is no power. There is no power of the media that is going to lead. That's going to be able to really sway the narrative. And when you think about the Harvard students who signed the letter supporting the Palestinians in the attack by Hamas, you had a business class that immediately reacted and said, "I'm no longer giving money to them, and I'm not going to hire any Harvard grads for such and such amount of years, so I make sure I don't get one of them." There are very real consequences to what's going on. But in regards to what he said, the only thing that I would add, that I would take issue with in regards to what he said, is that he doesn't mention Frederick Douglass in the same breath as William Lloyd Garrison, Charles Sumner, John Brown, all of these great abolitionists.
Excellent, excellent. So all the interviews that I've watched, and I've watched a lot just preparing for this program, no matter who is the person doing the interview, they always try to make the person that they're interviewing denounce Hamas and say that what
Yes.
Hamas did was wrong, and it was
Yes.
a crime, and all this foolishness. Before they can get to anything else, you got to start off with that.
Yes.
And
Or you're not going to be allowed to speak. That is what the insinuation is, and it's totalitarianism. It's tyranny. And see, the idea of, I disagree with what you say, but I will fight for your right to be able to say it, is not a position that many Americans take. They want to shut the other side down. And I always caution people, and I say, okay, but there was a time when your position was not the popular one. And there will come a time again in the future where your position is not the popular one. Politics change and sway depending upon what's happening within society. So do you want to speak when you're in the minority? And if you can say yes, especially if you're Black, then you need to go ahead and resist those moments to sort of wedge you into, well, okay, well, now you a good Negro that we can speak to. You're a good Egyptian we can talk to. You're a good Iraqi. No. That's totalitarianism. That's tyranny. That's the suppression of speech. It just is what it is. There ain't no getting around that.
Let's look at this next video.
I'm also saddened by the fact that 535 members of Congress could come together in one breath, fully condemn the horrors of what Israelis experienced. And that there is now only maybe few handful of them who could get to the point of saying, we condemn the slaughter of Palestinian children, of mothers, of fathers, of grandmothers, of grandfathers. Where is your humanity? How do you look at one atrocity and say this is wrong? But you watch as bodies pile up, as neighborhoods are leveled. Israel has dropped more bombs in the last 10 days than we dropped in a whole year in Afghanistan. Where is your humanity? Where is your outrage? Where is your care for people? How is it that we have a president who is talking about releasing hostages, who is talking about getting American citizens out of Israel, but could not get himself to say, I want to save and work to save the hundreds, thousands of Americans is stuck in Gaza? What is wrong with you? How is this possible? I want to say how insane and painful and scary it is to work and serve in a space where we have a member in our caucus say all Muslims are responsible for this, and not a single condemnation comes from our caucus leadership or any member of Congress. How is it that we are serving in a body where there are members who condemn us for asking for peace, for ceasefire? But I am never going to stop saying Palestinians deserve freedom, that we need to free Palestine. And I am never going to stop saying that there is no way that we should allow in sending more bombardments to kill Palestinians. Thank you.
Now, that was Ilhan Omar. Doc, what do you think about what she said?
Spot on. Spot on. I mean, there has to come a moment where you deal with the overarching issue of humanity and fairness. And despite what people would like to think, we're all inextricably linked with each other. There's no way to really efficiently break those ties that have us all kind of cinched together. The ability to stand up and to say that the attack from Hamas was unprovoked, unjust, terroristic, and then to be able to remain mute in regards to the response. It's terrible. It's absolutely positively terrible. but it flows from, and this is why I consistently say, I talk about the image and the racial brand of Black folk. People are going to support the side that they want to support, and they're going to find justifications and reasons to do it that don't stand up to any test of a moral litmus test, if we could use that term, because they have in the background, they have special interest in one side winning versus the other. There's a sub-discourse that is going on. There's a sub-discourse which is quite simply say we must save Israel so that we have access to Northern Africa. And we're going to come up with whatever reasons that we can. And in many ways, for the U.S. government, the taking of American hostages gave them several bullet points and justifications to do what they're doing and are about to do. Because the American population is going to say, well, they took our people. We gotta respond. Americans should be safe wherever they are. Everyone should be safe regardless of where they are. There's no doubt about that at all. But that's who we are as a nation. That's who we are as a human species, as mankind. There is no defense for that. If you're looking at parts evenly, but if you have a bias, an inherent bias for one side versus another side, yeah, you're going to come up with these flimsy justifications and a public plea like we just heard. Doesn't matter, because their hearts are rock solid. They're stones, and they're going to kill those people, and they're not going to care about killing those people, period. And they prove, I mean, if their history tells you nothing else, their history tells you that they do not care. If you are not with them, they don't care shit about you. And that goes for even within the Jewish population. If you are not walking lockstep in what they're saying needs to occur, you're ostracized as well.
Definitely. And, you know, unfortunately, there's American Palestinians that are stuck and can't get out. And so they're going to kill them as well. You know, when I first watched that video, I tell you, it really touched me. And, you know, when I was in DC, you know, a few times me and her met and we talked shop. And I love that woman. She is such a strong fighter. She is for the people. Ain't no ifs, ands, and buts about it. She's for the people. And I can't say everything that I would like to say at this time, but there will be a time coming once certain things happen, and you will definitely see her rocking black first. You will definitely see her rocking it.
You know, there's a stand up for what's right. You know, Frederick Douglass, to bring Douglass back, when the guy was talking about abolitionists, Douglass said this, and I'll you know, kind of alter it slightly, because Douglass was talking about slavery, and instead of saying slavery, I'll say oppression. Douglass says, one thing is for certain, there isn't a man under the canopy of heaven who doesn't know that oppression is wrong for him. That's gotta be it's gotta be your starting point, a moral position. And if a moral position, a position of justice in doing what's right is not your starting basis, how do you expect anything that you build on top of that to be worth the damn?
Exactly. Exactly. You know, with they're talking about the apartheid system,
Hmm.
what Israel has, that it was akin to what our family in South Africa
Hmm.
was going through. Um, what's your opinion on that?
I mean, I don't see much difference. It's once again, it's about oppression. It's about oppressors and those that they oppress. There isn't much. I mean, if anything, I was reading some stuff that said that there was a certain population of Palestinians who were allowed to come into Israel to work. And I imagine that they're probably working in wealthy people's homes, serving as servants and things like that. That's no different than what we've seen with apartheid. No different. And to be honest with you, that's no different than what we saw in Montgomery, Alabama, with the bus boycott. You know, who you think was on them buses? It was black women that was going into white communities as if they got a pass to suckle their children, clean their homes, and cook their food. It's no different. But we don't look at stories like the help and things like that through that lens. But it's oppression. It's the haves applying their will to the have-nots. You know, go back and listen to Ghetto Boys. You know, from Amsterdam to Amarillo, the world is a ghetto, and it's a ugly, unequal place where the most ruthless, the most immoral individuals win. You know, this type of talk always puts me in the mindset of something that Tupac Amaru Shakur said. Pac said, "The truth is, we living in hell. We just afraid to admit it." And that's the truth. So there's no difference between how the Jews are treating the Palestinians than how the Afrikaners treated the black Africans. To how white folk in Mobile, Selma, whatever southern or northern enclave that you want to talk about treated black folk. You were under their heel and you had to do what they told you to do, or they would starve you out. How's that any different from what Chinua Achebe was talking about when things fall apart? They built a store. For you to get anything out of that store, you got to submit to them and go work for them to get some money so you can go to the store. It's one of the most consistent, if not the most consistent strain of world history. That one group will always find a way to find a advantageous position to oppress another group. Period.
So, Doc, in other words, what you're saying is it doesn't matter what you call it, whether you call it apartheid, whether you call it white
Call it oppression.
supremacy, whether
Yeah, call it
it's
oppression.
all the same.
It's all the same. The only difference between the Palestinians and black folk in I'll use Southampton, Virginia, where Nat's rebellion occurred. The only difference is we didn't have bombs and missiles to shoot at them. Lord knows if we did, we would have used them. And they know that. And that's the reason why any just person cannot sit up and denounce the actions and the behaviors of those who have been brutally oppressed. Because in the same way that white folk in this nation had no interest whatsoever in sharing any political or economic power, you can say the exact same thing for every other oppressor. They have no interest in it. They're not going to cut off their nose to spite their face. What? Because it's immoral? Because some of y'all died? When you put people in that position, they ain't responsible for what they do. You think that they don't love their children? I would argue that the Palestinians love their children more than the Jews love their children. The same way that black folk love their children more than white folk love their children, because we know when our children leave out of this house, they're going to be hunted. That this could be the day that they don't come back. The police can pull them over at any time and take their lives. Let's be honest about it. So we cherish our children. We love our children. What would you seen the lengths that white folk would go to, quote unquote, set up a world to protect their children? So why do they have such a hard time understanding when other people will do the same for their children?
Exactly. I read about a story earlier today where a black woman's son was hit and killed by the police, and they buried him and never reached out to her and said nothing. Never said nothing. They killed him and buried him in a potter's grave.
I mean, you go back and you look at the abduction, the lynching, and the murder of Emmett Lewis Till. The thing that pissed Mamie Till off so much, they wouldn't even give her son's body. They tried to bury it. Come on. And these are people who will petition for some aid from God, who will ask for some mercy. Come on, please.
I don't. You would think, right, Doc? You would think that since the Jews, these Zionists, they went through the Holocaust, you putting in ovens and all that bullshit, that there would be a limit to their evilness, that they say, I'm not going to stoop that far. I'm not going to do
No. You're looking at that wrong. They emerged from that saying never again.
Yeah, never again. That they'll go through it, but they'll put somebody else through it. So what I'm saying,
they don't give a damn about what you going through. We're talking about here. We're talking about home. Never again. If we got to put 1 million of y'all in the grave, we'll never go through that again. And that's the jump off point for everything that they do. It's not predicated upon the idea of any justice, of any honoring of religion, of Christ, of Judaism, or anything like that. They're motivated by the idea of never again. And in many ways, what you can say is quite simply that they learned from the best.
Well, they definitely looking to use gas on the Palestinians, from what they're saying, that they're going to use gas. How are you going to use gas on the people when your so-called people just went through that, and now you're going to do it to somebody else? You're going to gas innocent people?
Never again. We will end the earth before we go through that again. You have to think about the absence of justice, the absence of a consideration for other people. And yeah, get rid of them, because we'll never go through that again. And they're serious about that. They're not willing to come to a negotiation table. And if the topic or the subject has anything to do with the yielding of any land or the sharing of any land, that's a non-starter for them. So what's the only other option? The other option is either you leave, which reminds one of what they went through under the Nazi regime. The first order, it was not the final solution. The first order was just leave. And when they weren't able to leave, then they moved to the final solution. The irony of this entire thing is, if you understood what happened with the Jewish Holocaust, it's almost lockstep to what's happening right now with the Palestinians. They were told to leave. However, their bank accounts and all their finances had been frozen. They couldn't leave. Those who may have had a couple ducats on them, they was able to make it maybe to Poland. But Poland will be captured as well. Okay? What they're doing is actually worse, because they're telling them to leave and blocking their path to be able to leave. So in every way, when you begin to equate, and I don't even want to use any identities, but when you're dealing with the idea of a oppressive force that is in many ways shown historically that their sole purpose is to get rid of you, you have every right to do whatever you can to keep the best thing that you got going for you, your life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Exactly. I want us to go look at this video. And this is a brother, Julius Malema from South Africa.
Uh-oh.
Yeah. Me and him in agreement on a lot of things. And I've talked to him on what is now called X, but it was Twitter then.
Twitter. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. To see about getting him on the program with us.
What type of government do we have in Israel that goes and bomb a hospital where people have run away for refugee, where people are sick, where children are there, where pregnant women are there? You bomb a hospital and you say you are looking for Hamas, but you are killing innocent children. There is nothing wrong Hamas did. This folk tongues and people speaking in parables and we don't know what they are saying, it's wrong. When you are oppressed, the only option you have is to fight. And that's what Hamas is doing. They are fighting for their freedom. Mandela did the same thing, took up the guns and fought for the freedom of the people of South Africa. When you are oppressed, you only have one option: confront the enemy and shoot to kill. Do not kiss the enemy.
Now, our brother, he says you only have one option: to kill.
What type of government?
Do not kiss the enemy. And I definitely agree with that. I like that. And, it is time that our people begin to speak with that voice, with that being able to say, this is what it is, and this is what it should be. And not feel ashamed or not feel, bad for you speaking the truth. It is what it is. It is what it is. And
if I can jump in real quick, bro.
Yeah, go ahead, Doc.
One of the most beautiful moments in Malcolm's public career was when he was talking about the white man made a mistake when he allowed me to see his history books. Our people need to learn what I would argue are the obvious hardcore truths about America, about tyranny and about oppression. And one of them is quite simply that when you are at war, nothing is off the table. Mm. That's the type of thinking that led to the bombing of, and I'm gonna channel my brother Khalid Abdul Muhammad, that led to the bombing of men, women, and children in Japan. The U.S. didn't siphon out who they were gonna get and who they weren't gonna get. So when you understand that, you should understand that they're not gonna have any restraint. It's impossible for them to have restraint. It ain't in them. So the brother's correct. Do what they did. That's my, since so many of our people feel that they're a part of this nation and this and that, and I'm one of those that feels I'm a part of this nation. But my position of being a part of this nation is quite simply, I'm gonna do exactly what they did. Those were my founding fathers, and they went to war, okay, and they didn't care, and you can sit there and I think that one of the most critical things is that you must divest in your mind from the idea that what you're doing is for the good of Black folk. I think many of our people would be much more serious if they believed that they were operating out of an American tradition. And that American tradition is take no prisoners. America was not interested in sharing any land with the British, with the French, or anyone else. They wanted the entire North American continent. And they almost got it. So in many ways, in saying all of that, what the brother is saying right here is what I refer to as a revolutionary universal truth.
Mm-hmm.
People don't go, especially when you come on, who you're dealing with. People ain't getting ready to share no land. Look at who we deal with. They ain't trying to share no land with you. In fact, they gonna come into your community, buy up all the land, and tell you ain't allowed to be there no more. Mm-hmm. Just like they did with our indigenous brothers. Told them, the indigenous people thought that they was getting over. Mm-hmm. When they sold them New York. They couldn't comprehend. What do you mean? We can't come over here no more? It's a foreign concept to righteous people. So
I want to welcome Sister Cassie to the program, and I also want to welcome Modero to the program. But Doc, peace and blessings, Sister Cassie, and I believe Mr. Adolphus. I don't know how to pronounce your name, but peace and blessings. Welcome to the program. Maya asks a question that I want to read, and I think the answer is yes, but you know for sure. No, I think that they're both the same. But she said, is there a difference between Zionism and manifest destiny?
Oh, I would say that they're euphemisms for the exact same thing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. The idea that your actions and what you're doing are ordered by God. Mm-hmm. And your sins for what you're doing, because they are endorsed by God, have been ordered by God, they're really not sins. So in many ways, go ahead and do God's will. And if you really want to take it a step further, your position as being a quote unquote religious zealot is in many ways sanctioning whatever it is that you need to do to improve what you need to do to improve your station in your life. Because after all, this is going to be the land that God lives in. So no, that's a hell of a question. Very poignant.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And Mr. Adrofield, thank you for correcting me, helping me to pronounce it your name properly. I appreciate that. Dealing with what you're saying, that this is who they are. Period, point blank. You don't need to romance it. It is what it is. This is who they are. And even in the picture of the program, we have the American flag coming out with the Zionists as one flag. Mm-hmm. And they are who they are. This is the reality. We're going to show a clip of Eddie Griffin and, a message to white folks. And get your thoughts on that.
Don't worry about it, white folks. Your time's coming. If karma has any kind of validity in reality, and it does, the law of karma says what? What goes around. Sally, Jill, it's going down. You're gonna have a real good time when I own you. I'll let you pick cotton at night. That way your skin don't burn up. I'm only gonna beat you on Thursdays at 7:30. I got shit to do. And it's gonna be a whole lot of light-skinned Prince-looking motherfucking kids on my plantation. Sally, you gonna get it. She gonna come out the barn every morning. That nigga wouldn't stop. Sally, what are you gonna do? He fucks you every night. What are you gonna do about it? I'm gonna move in. I love him. White people, I don't think he couldn't have been a slave. Y'all too soft. He got that face like, whatever, nigga, we could have did it. You can barely take 5 minutes of me talking shit right now without turning red. Let alone me fucking your wife. All the black slave owners would be on their push. Yeah, let them go. Oh, they ain't worth a damn. All they do is lay on the ground and burn up on you and bitch all the time. Then when you put them in the sun, you gotta grease them down first. And that suntan lotion ain't cheap shit.
You don't want to miss this film session.
So what comes around goes around, Doc, as Eddie Griffith was saying. Now everybody don't imagine putting them in slavery or having them enslaved and then having sex with the white woman or raping the white woman like they raped the black man and the black woman. But that thought of, making them suffer, as they have made us suffer. That energy has to have a place to go. It just is just not going to evaporate up into the thin air. What's your thoughts on that?
I believe that, number one, I believe karma is real. I know that karma is real. And matter of fact, I've been, often felt as if I was the tool of karma several times in my dealings with people. But my fear, and let's be honest, that the reign that we saw America have, and as a historian, we refer to the 20th century as the American century. That moment is gone. We're no longer the only top dogs, the only economic might, the only military power. That's gone. It's in many ways akin to the 1980s NBA, where you had two superpowers, Boston and LA. Okay, Philly rose for a little bit. Doc got him a title, but by and large, it was Boston and LA. Those times are gone. You now have parity. You have a situation where the Denver Nuggets can win a NBA championship without even their best player being a black guy. Now, having said that, and this is my fear, that when America falls, Black America, because she has been so intertwined with her, will fall as well, will struggle mightily. I wish that there was a way for us to separate from them, especially when what is coming is going to come. And the only way you can do that is through independence. Now, I'm not saying that I'm going to endorse Cassie Land. However, you get my point. So, yeah, I mean, it's coming, but it's not going to come in the form that Eddie Griffin is talking about. We're not going to be the controllers and masters of white folk. More than likely, if I had to put any money on it, I would say it would be the Asians. And if the Asians get control, especially the Japanese get control of America in a significant way, don't forget that they put their people in concentration camps here during World War II. So it's going to be brutal. It's going to be ugly. It's going to be exploitive. And it's going to be a world, to be honest with you, that first world favored status white folk are not going to be willing to live in. They're going to really act up and possibly give the world the JFK treatment with the Cuban Missile Crisis. He said if nuclear weapons go on the island of Cuba, the world is destroyed, meaning the United States was going to delete the entire earth.
We differ on that a little bit, because I think that when America goes down, and she will go down in battle, I don't believe that we as Black folks are going to be at the hand of no Asian person or anything like that.
No. I'm talking about white folk will be. White folk will be at their hand. I believe that most people, um, even that haven't studied our history, understand that we're really not them. But there are going to be some of us who are going to try and defend them. But there are going to be a lot more of us who are like, let them suffer the punishment that they've earned. You know, but Black folk are really, as Khalid Muhammad referred to us, he said we're tenderhearted. And that is in many ways one of our biggest problems, that we're tenderhearted. We are, speaking loosely, we're a lot more Barack Hussein Obama, wanting everybody to be considered and taken care of, than we are George W. Bush, which is quite simply, we're going this way, and you better respond according to what's in your best interest.
Doc, I think that there's a significant number of us that would really, take it to them not to be on that Barack Obama level of, we want to care enough.
Oh yeah, there's some of us without a doubt, and there's many of us, and this is really the question that I have. I used to hate when I had a professor at Ohio State. Eugene Watts, that was his name. Okay, Republican congressperson, this and that. And we would butt heads every single class, right? My classmates would sit back, and I'm talking about the Black classmates. They would sit back and watch us battle, never jump into it, okay? But when we went on break, they would come up to me in private, yeah, man, you was right. You was right. Negro, why don't you say something then? I'm wondering how many of them seeing white folk being overthrown would now have their tongues loosened and would stand with us. That's something we ain't gonna know until we get there.
Definitely. And I see Sister Cassie say you're welcome.
I can't go to Cassie Land. Cassie Land, I got too many vices to think that I could make it in Cassie Land. She'd send me over there to that island on several occasions.
Mr. Adrofi says, if we aren't tenderhearted, Doc, don't we become them?
No, because what they've done has been principally emanating from a foundation of being immoral and unrighteous. What they would receive from us is what is due.
Definitely. Now I want to go to this next clip because it talks about well, I'll just go to the clip and then we'll come back and talk about it.
All right.
Involved police officers to take our time to waste the time of an entire nation talking about they never heard of police brutality, they don't know what Black people are talking about, they can't prove it. We know in Detroit, anytime a Black person is brutalized by the police, he goes into court and he's arrested for assault and battery. Now the basic issue is so simple and nobody will even touch it because you're afraid to touch it. You are deliberately trying to evade the issue. Everybody is talking.
Reverend Clegg, if you can hear me.
The thing is that in the United States, we are engaged in a power struggle between black people and white people. You don't want to say it. You don't want to hear it said. You want to talk to somebody else. You got a nut sitting there someplace who says he's a police official who hasn't said one thing all night. There is a power struggle going on, and black people have decided they're not going to tolerate oppression any longer. Now, police brutality is a very deliberate thing. It's a part of American life. America has decided that black people are to be kept in subjection. It's an army of occupation that the white power structure keeps in the black ghetto. We know. Now, don't talk about what is the incident, how much it is. We know what it is.
Reverend Clegg, let me ask you a question.
The power structure knows it. White people know it. Throughout America, white people know what white policemen are doing.
Let me ask you a question, Reverend Clegg.
You know what it is. Everybody knows what it is. Now, black people are not going to permit police brutality to go on.
Reverend Clegg.
In any city in America.
Reverend Clegg.
We had in almost 100 cities race violence last summer. If police brutality continues, we'll have it in 200 cities next summer. Now, white people know that. Something has got to be done about it. We are wasting time. Let's come to the issue.
I can't seem to get Reverend Clegg's ear, and without seeming to seem irreverent or disrespectful, we're going to shift to Philadelphia, where the chief of police of Detroit is in the Philadelphia studio, Chief Parcell. Can you add something to this dialogue, Mr. Parcell?
Yes,
You're the president, I believe, of the Detroit Police Officers Association. Are you on leave from your duties as chief?
I'm not the chief of police. I'm the head of the Police Officers Association.
I stand corrected. Please go ahead.
I'd certainly like to answer the Reverend Clegg. I think there's been many self-appointed leaders throughout the Negro community who have stated that they represent the Negro. And I think it's a proven fact that in these areas where they had a vote for police officers, and right in Watts, right after the riot there, they voted on a pension system for the Los Angeles police officers, and they collected 75% out of the Watts area. In Detroit, where there was over 600,000 Negroes, very few of these people participated in the riot. And I think that in the next week, there's going to be a committee of Negro leaders, business leaders, stand up and make a statement, make a combined statement that no one speaks for them. Rat Brown don't speak for them. Reverend Clegg doesn't speak for them.
Officer Parcell, would you address yourself more specifically to the problem in Detroit rather than the problem elsewhere?
Yes, I think that the Reverend Clegg himself states that he speaks for the people of Detroit. I have to say that in Detroit, that there were over 600,000 Negroes in Detroit, and certainly they did not participate in any riots. Reverend Clegg has stated that the only thing that the riot proved was that the Negroes could uprise, and it did not prove anything because it was fought to a standstill. And I think that he made a statement that if he had help from other Negro leaders like Carmichael and Rat Brown, that certainly it would not be a standstill and they would have won. Now I asked him, what did the Negro community want? The Negro community has come forward to the police department, Detroit, and asked for more police protection. They want protection. They have asked for more community programs, and I'm happy to say that in our letter to the police commissioner, we too have requested more police community relations, and I think that they are about to set up a storefront system in Detroit where patrolmen will be involved in it, where they will be talking to the people in the community, but at the same time, when we are charged with defending ourselves, certainly we are here in defense of the police department. We're here in defense of all policemen.
Reverend Clegg, excuse me, Reverend Clegg.
I'd like to answer the Reverend.
I want to pause it right quick to just let everybody know who Reverend Clegg is or was. You know, he was the founder of the Church of the Black Madonna. He also wrote a book called The Black Messiah. He's a Christian minister, but black nationalist. You know, he wouldn't take no shit. He wouldn't take no shit at all. You know, and if you were listening real good, you know, they talked about where he said that they fought the police to a standstill. They fought the police to a standstill. So, you know, again, this brother, this Christian minister, he got the gospel a totally different way. He understood that, you know, we're going to get down, we're going to fuck these crackers up, period, point blank. He understood that, you know, and this is the type of Christian minister that is good for our people, because he ain't going to tell you to turn over and let the cracker hit you on your other cheek. No, he's going to tell you to bust him in his ass, and we're going to kill these some bitches. As soon as they come this way, we're going to give them what they earn. This brother was a good brother. Doc, you want to say anything about him before we go further?
Yeah, I mean, for my Christian brothers and sisters, read his book, Black Christian Nationalism, where he advances a black gospel that I actually had a white student by the name of Kyle Ogle, who's now a pastor, and I gave him a copy of it. And he said, man, I've never read nothing like this in my life. But Albert Cleage, Shrine of the Black Madonna, his daughter, Pearl Cleage, is an intellectual who actually wrote several plays and things like that in the book. And this is, I often reference the title of her book, What Looks Like Normal on a Crazy Day. I often talk about that's what Black America looks like to me, what looks like normal on a crazy day. Or what looks like crazy on a normal day. It's one of the other. But yeah, he's a beloved brother out of Detroit, certainly. And actually, we have a shrine here in Houston. We have a shrine of the Black Madonna here in Houston as well. Yeah.
Wow, definitely. Okay, so let's go ahead and pick back up with what he was saying.
Reverend, also. He is the one that advocated that the police department join rifle clubs so they could get superior weapons to kill black people during the next revolution. Now,
I would like to answer him. Reverend Clegg, let me just
understand the basic issue, which is still being avoided in Detroit.
You're avoiding my questions, Reverend Clegg.
Detroit has advocated superior weapons for the white police department, the Army of Occupation. He has advocated $9 million, and I'd like to have a witness say something about the Stoner rifle, which is the most deadly weapon ever conceived, that is now being purchased in huge quantities by the Detroit Police Department. And I'd like to ask Reverend Charles Butler, who is a pastor of the New Calvary Baptist Church and the chairman of the Defense Committee of the Interfaith Emergency Council, to say a word on this Stoner rifle, which the Detroit Police Department is getting together.
I'd like to answer him on something he's talking about.
Wait just a minute. Let's get the Reverend's colleague here. But Reverend, please keep that little thing in your ear. I'm having difficulty asking you questions. But go ahead and let the gentleman comment about the weapon.
Reverend Butler, talk about that weapon that they get together.
One of the reasons the heat is raised in Detroit and will probably remain high is the Stoner rifle requested for purchase by the Detroit Police Department. This rifle is a combat assault weapon, caliber .223, extremely accurate, that can be fired as a semi or as a fully automatic weapon with a muzzle velocity of 3,300 feet per second and a range of 1.5 miles. It has been demonstrated as capable of piercing incredible thickness of both soft steel and masonry. The bullet begins to tumble upon impact with target, boring, tearing, shocking, mutilating, maiming, and killing, leaving gaping holes in its target. A soldier recently returned from Vietnam told me this week that in the zone where he was, the Stoner rifle now in use there was considered so deadly that it was fired only on orders from an officer of captain's rank or higher. I am therefore deeply distressed that a civil agency wants a combat assault weapon and would like to know why. I am also distressed at the destructive power of the Stoner rifle or other high-velocity rifles and the likelihood that many innocent people can be killed or permanently maimed by its use, even people locked in their homes, since the rifle will shoot through masonry.
Reverend, perhaps we can ask the Detroit police officer who is in Philadelphia a little later the answer to your question of why they're doing this. But meanwhile, I'm going to interrupt you. I'm going to interrupt you for just a minute to ask Dr. Reese, in view of the fact that Detroit is a very familiar neighborhood to him, his headquarters are in Ann Arbor, about this in terms of weapons. And then I want to go for a reaction to Dr. Poussaint about this whole issue of lethal weapons and non-lethal weapons. Do they achieve any salubrious objective?
I doubt whether an armed police in the sense of the Stoner rifle is what we want in a democratic society. I doubt whether we want to calculate a policy of policing that is based on the use of weapons against the citizenry. And I certainly, for one, would question seriously the basis on which such a policy is made.
Dr. Poussaint, have you got some reactions of your own to this kind of technique?
Yes, I have some reactions to that. I think it seems that police are more concerned with putting down riots and enforcing law, and don't seem to be concerned with some of the causes that are leading to some of the distress into the riots. So they react with sort of repressive measures, and we're going to suppress more people, and we're going to kill them, and so on. Now, I think this whole question of these new weapons that police are getting is getting quite out of hand, and I think in particular, besides these rifles, the chemical mace, which is a tear gas spray that's been purchased in large quantities by many police departments around the country.
Before we go into the techniques and technicalities of mace, I want to interrupt to ask Mr. Parcell in Philadelphia, the president of the Detroit Police Officers Association, if he has any thing that he wants to say about this Stoner rifle in Detroit, the question that was raised by the Negro clergyman. Can you hear?
Okay, that's too long. We're not going to keep going. We're running on time here. But basically, they're talking about the points that I wanted us to be able to really bring out and touch on, is that our people are not afraid to go toe-to-toe with the police. Not afraid whatsoever. They wasn't afraid then, and they're not afraid now. And just as the Palestinians go toe-to-toe with the army of the Israelis, we're going to go toe-to-toe. Ain't no ifs, ands, and buts about it. That's another reason why jackass Joe Biden will never condemn Israel. Will never condemn Israel, because those same plans that they got going on in Israel is the plans that they got going on for us. But it ain't going to be that easy road like that. It's not going to be that easy road. We are a people that has had it up to here with that foolishness. And, you know, they talk that talk, just like Benjamin Netanyahu over there talking that talk. But when they get up in there, and I believe Hezbollah come down and they're going to have to fight toe-to-toe, it's going to be a totally different fight. It's going to be a totally different thing. Can't drop no bombs now, baby. Now it's hand-to-hand combat. Let's get them. Let's eat them. That's what it's going to be. And I don't want us as a people to be afraid of these crackers. Don't fear them at all. At all. Don't fear them. Because trust and believe you got enough God in you that you will take them out without a doubt. We will win. We are built to win. Their time is up. Their time is up. They ain't got no real fight in them. They ain't no real fight in them. Man, please. They're so weak. They're so weak. It is truly, truly our time. And before I forget, I want to welcome Sandra D to the program. Peace and blessings. Welcome to the program. We're glad you finally was able to catch us live and to be able to comment. Peace and blessings. Doc, when we deal with the reality that, yeah, you know, we were fighting them back in the 70s and we're going to continue fighting them. And, you know, it is going to be a guerrilla warfare. And it's totally different. totally different. You're going to go toe to toe and trust and believe when I say they're not made like that, they ain't really made like that. Your thoughts, Doc?
You know, first off, I'm glad to be able to see both Albert Cleage and also a young Alvin Toussaint. You know, that was the brother that was the engine behind the Cosby Show. All the black images. Alvin Toussaint, if you go back, you'll see his name in the credits. But you know, the idea of Black America joining together to have to repel white police officers, it's one that for me we've done before, and we've done it successfully before. But it becomes a question for me towards what end? How do we win, as far as, are we talking about revolutionary nationalism overthrowing the nation? What are we talking about, the creation of black colonies? Going into that, I think that we need to really hammer that out, what winning would look like for us. But the truth of the matter is that when you're looking at any black community, I don't care if you're talking about Philly, Detroit, DC, Cleveland, Ohio, Columbus, Ohio, Houston, Texas, the 5th Ward, 3rd Ward, 4th Ward down here, we have been under occupation for far too long by rogue white police officers who would just as soon kill you as have any service as to look at you. You know, one of the things when I was doing my Panther book that I discovered was that even in the Bay, where we had Tupac beat up, and you know, the Oakland Police Department has always historically been brutal. The white founders of California, talking about Governor Reagan and all of those cats, they actually actively recruited white police officers from Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, because they felt that they would know how to control this black population that was entering into their area. It's a battle that'll never end, you know, and in many ways, it reminds one of the oppressor versus the person being oppressed that we talked about earlier. You know, when you're talking about law enforcement and you're talking about this, they're merely a tool of the system. They're getting a pittance of a salary to go in and regulate and control anyone that they think could serve as a potential upriser. So can we win yet with guerrilla warfare? You know, like my brother said, you know, they're not built like that. You know, we don't talk about this in American history, but we lost Vietnam. You know, we lost. And they're going to do everything that they possibly can and not put boots on the ground because they don't have the numbers anymore. And that's a bloody hard fight. And to be honest with you, I can't find anywhere in history where anyone has ever been able to go into that region of Northern Africa and come out successfully, let alone come out unscathed. And I yield, brother.
Awesome. Thank you, Doc. We because we are running out of time, we're going to look at one last quick video.
Why is everybody saying Gen Z is going to get drafted? Like, no, we're not. And you know why I know that? Because we're just going to say no. Like, how are they going to actually force us to get up and go to war? I understand it was like that in like the 1940s. What else is there to do in 1940 besides people? We have things to do nowadays. We have twerk, be bisexual, eat hot chip, lie. And we're also like really mentally ill. I have like 6 of these. What makes you think I'm qualified to have a like within 600 feet of anybody, including myself? And finally, like, they're like so tacky. Like, can you imagine just like pulling up with it? Like, that is so embarrassing.
Oh man, you're drunk. Not only are they gonna make you go, I hope you're the first. But if you do not contribute, there's a such thing called friendly fire. And every time's not an accident.
So, Doc, there's Gen Z, you know, and there's a lot of Gen Zs with their little videos answering about, hell no, I ain't getting drafted. You ain't, you know, if it come to me, I'm gonna have a baby, or I'm gonna do this, or I take too many meds and this, that, that. I mean, they give this plethora of reasons why they're not getting drafted, why they're not, you know, suitable to fight and would never fight for, you know, this country that they call home. What's your thoughts on these Gen Zers and their attitude of defending their great country?
There's never been a greater explanation of the naivete of youth. They don't understand because they've never seen it. Oh, you will come. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. And all of this idea of you're going to be able to weasel your way out of this, yeah, okay. They're going to get you in the basic training and they're going to break your ass down to a point where you don't even remember your mama's name. Okay. Now, for those who decide that they ain't going to report, they're going to just put you in prison. It's what it is. They need numbers. They need you. You better get that GPA up and get your ass in somebody's college. Because these whole idea of, well, I'm gonna just say I'm gay, and that shit ain't gonna work. Okay, they're gonna pat you on the ass and be like, oh, yo, okay, make his bottom of his uniform a little tighter. He likes skinny jeans. Okay, there will be there's not going to be, as they're thinking, that I can simply be disruptive and problematic and that'll save me. That's not going to save you. That's not going to be the balm that people find in Gilead. It's just not. So they're going to be in for, to be honest with you, a very rude awakening. And that rude awakening is going to surprise them. And they ain't know when the shit. When they want you to come, oh, you coming. Unless you're willing to go to prison. Okay. And they too soft to go to prison.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Definitely, Times is getting there.
Yeah, I mean, it's to be honest with you, it's kind of one of the greatest displays of white privilege, that the life that you have lived, your whiteness has been a currency that you could use to get out of any situation you were in. It ain't gonna work with white folk. And they're not going to send their child. So they're going to send your monkey ass to go out there and to, you're going to be pissing and shitting on yourself every goddamn day. Okay. They're going to just give you a depend and be like, yo, go ahead and change that out because you're smelling.
Definitely. We are at our time. And I wanted to touch on this as well. America is going down, and America is going down in war. Ain't no ifs, ands, and buts about it. So, as I said to you earlier, if you got any sense, you will not be in a draft, or you will catch a cold and you will die from that cold. These are the realities of the times that we're in. But don't you fret none, because your true freedom lies at the door. We just have to be ready mentally. We have to be ready. And when the thing go, then it's on and popping. Doc, closing comments?
Only closing comment I got is, bro, this is definitely highlight of the week. Glad to be here with family and really look forward to this whole week. If I can just make it a Friday, I'll get re-energized. I'm in many ways like a Christian that's been beat down, all week, and they go to church and get the energy and the strength and the encouragement to make it till that next Sunday. So pray for me as I pray for you. And
Most
love
definitely.
you all. God bless you. Peace.
Definitely. Love you too, Doc. All right. And our program that we're going to have on Saturday at 7 o'clock Eastern, 6 o'clock Central, our program will be called Beauty and the Beast. Beauty and the Beast. So definitely looking forward to be there. And make sure you pass the word out. We ask everybody to like and share the videos so that we can get our numbers up and do everything that needs to be done. And as we always say, you kill the nigga in you, I'm gonna kill the nigga in me, and our God will reign supreme. We are Black first, today, tomorrow, and forever. Love you, family. Peace and blessings. Assalamu alaikum. Shalom.
You better get the message and get it straight. You're gonna need some bridge work. It's simple as that. Because we're living in judgment. We're living in implementation.